Hi, and welcome to The Wonders I've Seen, where there's no such thing as weird or normal, there's just different. I'm your host, Tanagra, and today we'll be discussing the Netflix series Bridgerton. Yes, the Shondaland show, not the books. I'm joined by my guest, Ariel. Say hello, Ariel.
Hello, everyone.
And she was previously a guest last season when we talked Halloween horrors and the episode about Coraline. If you haven't listened to it yet, you should check that out on our page. So, grab your liquid nourishment, sit back, and enjoy the wonders.
I have never desired your good opinion.
People fear what they do not understand.
I have a headache, a badge, and a gun.
Power is yours.
Behave.
I was just trying to start a conversation.
And share the wonders I've seen.
My liquid nourishment for the day is Earl Grey with vanilla. What are you having, Ariel?
I'm having some tea, and it's forest fruit.
Oh, fancy.
And it's very sweet, and I love it.
Excellent. Sweet tea, as we discuss this sweet-ish, maybe possibly, romance. All right, let's get into it. So, a little bit of background. In case you haven't caught up to the whole Bridgerton craze that's happening internationally because of the Netflix original, it has permeated pop culture so much that Google now corrects my spelling of it when I spell it wrong, which I guess, yay, thanks Google. But anyway, for those of you not familiar with Netflix's Bridgerton, it's the adaptation of author Julia Quinn's Regency romance series consisting of 8 novels. There's a 9th that's simply a prologue with all the happy endings of everybody, and guess what? They all have children. But anyway, we'll get into that. As is standard in a romance novel, each novel features a different pairing, with the characters of each pairing somehow related. In the case of Bridgerton, each novel follows one of the 8 Bridgerton siblings as they find love in Regency England. The first novel follows the eldest Bridgerton daughter, Daphne Bridgerton, as she is presented in society and ultimately finds love with Duke Simon Bassett, the love of her life. Yes. This adaptation was produced by Shondaland, and it's her first production as part of her 7-figure Netflix deal. However, the announcement of this happening had mixed reactions from Romancelandia. If you're not familiar, Romancelandia is the name used to encompass romance novel fans who are usually most active on Twitter. I myself am a proud member. So one of the complaints, there were specifically 2. First, Quinn's novels are very white, and as you know, diversity in characters is a hallmark of any Shondaland production. And second, Quinn herself had previously stated that she didn't include BIPOC in her books because it would be, quote, too hard to explain why her rich white people would be nice to slaves and Jewish people, and that she also didn't include them since she didn't write suffering but HEAs, or happily ever afters, a hallmark of romance novels. And third, the third complaint was that there are numerous popular, successful historical romance novels that feature BIPOC written by authors of color. So why adapt one that required colorblind casting, which, of course, we have now found out after speaking with the showrunner, actually is not the case with Bridgerton, but we'll also be talking about that. So now, since making those statements in 2017, Quinn has appeared to do better. She promotes Black romance authors on her Facebook page, which is her primary way of talking with her fans. She's even posted an image supporting Black Lives Matter. And while it would mean more if these posts had happened prior to her, who knows how many 0 deals with Shondaland for selling the adaptation rights of her book, it's a nice indication that she is publicly trying to educate herself and also her fans. So we're just going to keep watching that on her Facebook and hope it increases. We'll see what happens with any of her future novels. And we will not be discussing Quinn or her issues with racism or her past with racial statements in this podcast, past what I've already said, just so you have some background, because we're going to be sticking to the Shondaland Bridgerton adaptation with showrunner Chris Van Dusen. So, this is a romance in the very limited history of every single Jane Austen novel adaptation you've seen. If you're British, you're probably familiar with Catherine Cookson, who I've recently been diving into. And something that was obviously really popular recently in the US was Poldark. So this is a historical romance in that tradition. But the key there is romance. So, first question, broad question. Is it romantic? Is Bridgerton romantic? Ariel, what do you think? Yes or no? Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Well, as a totally non-expert in that field, I will say yes.
Okay, so you thought all 8 episodes, like, overall, obviously there are issues,
Yeah.
but it wasn't it was romantic.
I think it qualifies because relationships, whether they are emotional or sexual, are really the main focus of the show. Like, who's pairing with who, who's in love with who, who's gonna marry who. It's really the main focus of the show. Yeah, I can't even really pinpoint anything else. Like, I can't say there are strong social issues or anything underlying. This is not, the comparison to Jane Austen is very unfair there.
I mean, I read a lot of interviews with the writer, and that was sort of the tradition this was put in. And even Shondaland was like, I'm surprised why it's all been Austen and there hasn't been any modern romance novel adaptations. So I didn't make that comparison myself. That is right. Like, I'm just putting that out there. That was not me saying that Quinn is on the same level as Austen, because I would not. Like, nothing against her writing and her fans, but I would not.
It's a great selling point for sure. That's what people mostly know. But Jane Austen was also writing. There is romance in her stories, but it's also like a huge critic of her time and social standards, and there's a lot more. I would say Bridgerton is 90-95% romance. I would definitely agree with that, especially seeing as how this first series, while a second series hasn't been confirmed, they've already started filming for something magically called Bridgerton 02 in the UK, whether or not Netflix has announced it. So seeing as how this first series focuses on the Duke and Daphne falling in love, getting married, and spoiler alert, having children, I do think it is romantic in that it shows all the signs of what is supposed to be like two people falling in love and of romance. But now, outside of that, do you think it sold it? And do you think the Duke and Daphne sold you on the romance and their how did they put it? Oh yeah, I burn for you passion. Okay. Good dialogue. Like, I love this, but yeah, a lot of things didn't sell it for me. I would say midway through the season, which I've watched with you.
Yes.
By the way,
we did watch this together.
So, as you know already, it started to be disappointing midway through the season when suddenly the characters, especially their relationships, started to be problematic and not so fun, not so much good fun. Like, all the banter from the beginning was delicious. That was fun. I can't say the actors always sold everything. I think they were somewhat lacking, and especially in their chemistry. But I was still transported by the story, and I was still rooting for them to end up together. And then after the midpoint, it just started to be a little bit toxic, and they suddenly didn't talk. And I mean, the fans are talking all about those problems already, but I think it's fair. And I did lose not interest, but a lot of my involvement, like shipping in the couple.
You were less invested. Thank you. I
think I wanted to concentrate on the secondary characters more at that point, and I hated the ending. Let's be clear.
Yes, I think yeah, I have so many thoughts on that unnecessary also ending. I did hate it as well. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I loved the banter leading up to it. I thought that the two actors seemed to have, like, they were pretty comfortable with each other. They had decent chemistry, but it became very clear when they got to, like, that this is supposed to be, we're passionately in love with each other. And I do mean from that first kiss in the garden, that, like, that chemistry they had was for friendship. and for the bantering, and it doesn't translate to actual like anything sexual, which I didn't really find that, like, I didn't find it that surprising, just because like I didn't think that Daphne, like you were saying that you didn't really believe it that much before, but yeah, I didn't think Daphne pulled off the looks of like desire and longing. There was a lot of talk about how this was supposed to show the female gaze as she looked at Simon, the Duke, and how much she wanted him, and how it was supposed to be mirroring the shots as seen in, of course, another historical romance that's been very popular here, Outlander. And I was like, oh, I did not see that level of desire from her to him. This is with or without their clothing on, before they talked or while they were having sex. It wasn't there. And I don't know if the actors were too comfortable with each other as friends, or if they just lacked the ability. And I don't want to like judge their acting ability, but I don't know if maybe it was that just didn't sell that they were attracted to each other in that way. Like, I wasn't feeling it.
Comparing to Outlander, which I've watched.
Yes.
Even when the characters are not having sex in that show, like even long before they first do in the show, that it was sexy. There was chemistry between the actors, so unfair comparison. Having a female gaze is great, but if there's nothing going on between the actors, or the camera is not able to capture anything, it doesn't matter which gaze it is. It's just not working.
So I will clarify that I, once again, also did not make that comparison. That came from the actress who said that.
Well, well, I don't know what she wrote in her notebook while watching the show. I mean, a lot of things are just, if you don't have chemistry, I think it's really hard to fake it. No matter how great of an actor you are, and I have no idea if she is a great actress to begin with. It's the first role I've ever seen her in. Right. So I can only judge her on this show. I mean, in comparison, her brother in the show, Anthony, who is having an affair, with the opera lady, the singer.
Oh, yes.
They had chemistry, not just because they're actually having sex on scene, but it was just working with them. Like, they could sell it to me.
No, I would completely agree. Like, as much as I was annoyed with the unnecessary butt shot when they introduced them having sex against a tree in the first episode. Okay, we can talk about the necessity of butt shots throughout all Shondaland productions if we want. That is a different episode. But I was annoyed with it. I was like, Shondaland. Like, that's what I did when I saw that. As much
I'm sorry, we never had any butt shots on ABC.
No, that's true. ABC is more like artfully placed leg shots and like stomach shots. Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, as much as I thought it was unnecessary, when I saw them together, I was like, oh, I want them to work it out, but I know they won't because he's too caught up in societal structures. Like, I was invested and I wanted like them to be happy, either to like preferably together, but I knew it wouldn't work out. And I never felt that for our lead couple. And you're right. Maybe it has something to do with acting. Maybe like if the chemistry's not there, it's just not there. And I think that they're cute together. And I feel like that is probably why they were cast, because they're cute together. But cute doesn't translate to passion. It doesn't translate to chemistry. And I feel like that maybe just was maybe it was a casting issue more than an acting issue. Because they were saying all the correct dialogue, right? Like all the things that you're supposed to say to show how much you love somebody, how much you're passionate about them. You're the person I want to be with. It doesn't matter to me if we can't have children, all of that. And it still just didn't sell it for me. Yeah. No, and
right after they married, I think that's when Daphne first declares herself And then he follows up by I think, is that when they're saying I burn for you? Like saying that basically they actually had feelings. This is not just a fake marriage.
Yes.
They're both admitting to their feelings. This is supposed to be a huge scene.
Mm-hmm.
I was waiting to have those
Me
feelings.
too!
Oh my god, this is so romantic. And it just fell flat. They couldn't sell it to me before. Like, I didn't see anything burning behind their eyes before. So I'm like, oh, it just looks like it's convenient for the script.
I know, I completely agree. I was telling somebody that screen does fall flat, but I was actually squealing more, which I squeal when I get excited by romance. I was actually squealing more when they have that scene in the museum where they like touch hands for the first time, because I was like, they're choosing to touch each other and it's in public. Oh my gosh. And that I felt more in retrospect, having rewatched it. Now I'm just like, oh, I think that was just good editing and camera work. Like, I'm like,
right, because that was good slow burn.
Yes.
But is that maybe the issue? Like, that's all they could give you, but once it's actually supposed to pass the slow burn, this is where it messed up and where it's not working.
I mean, I guess though, like, right, that sort of makes sense though, because if they're good friends, they can do the slow burn and they can do the tempting, but when you actually have to see them playing it out and it's prolonged passion, which ultimately, right, is what the last 4 episodes are supposed to be, that's a completely different dynamic than that slow burn and then we reach this peak. And like, you're supposed to keep going, but if you can't. Yeah.
And also they were not helped by the story because the story decided to create problems.
So let's
with their couple.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So we have the confession on their wedding night that falls flat and they're passionate and then they have sex for the first time, right? And this is after he's already been like, I can't have children, and she's thinking that he's impotent, basically, which is not the case. And then
not really. She thinks he has a physical problem, but she knows nothing about sex and reproduction, so she doesn't even know what it is.
No, she just thinks, like, right, that he just is unable to give her children, so she doesn't understand that, like, at all.
When he pulls, she doesn't understand it. I think she said, like, are you hurting?
Yeah.
She thinks he's just in pain or something.
Yes, correct. And then she was like, does that hurt? And he was like, oh no, not at all. It feels, how did he says something about, like, it feels as good to him as it does for her, which I think he's trying to imply that she has an orgasm and then, like, that's his equivalent. And so then we have her finding out, of course, that, like, nope. Actually, the whole, like, pulling out and ejaculating everywhere around the fucking house. Like,
I do not want to be those poor servants.
Like, seriously, I was like, really, y'all? Really? Like, come on now. But apparently that's why she's not getting pregnant. And then we have the scene, and whether we're gonna. So this has been something that's been very controversial for all viewers, both inside and outside of Romancelandia, was whether or not this was a rape scene, an assault scene, a coercion scene, or whether or not it was fine because it was over quickly. Let me just be really clear. Don't agree with the last one. It's not fine at all. For me, it is sexual assault because he was fine having sex. He was okay with that part. It was the messing with, I'll call it contraceptive, if we're going to call the pull-out method a contraceptive method. It was messing with that was really the issue. And besides the way that this was acted and outside of how it was written, and that it doesn't really make much sense for the character, it was also just a really shitty thing to have in a relationship that's supposed to be about love, trust, and friendship. And I know it's in the book, but I also don't think it really served a purpose in this, except creating issues between our two romantic leads.
You're making me think about something, because I was going to say all of this seems to be resolved so fast. From that moment on when she does her forced impregnation, And then she has this huge speech and everything ends well. And then 9 months later, boop, a baby.
Yeah.
I was wondering, like, so it is bad writing, but is it also because they only had 8 episodes? Like, couldn't they... Maybe they could have solved this better with another episode. But...
I mean, but I feel like we have an entire episode where it's just them, like, looking at each other longingly, and then when, like, they have oral sex on the steps, and then she's like, why can't we finish this? Why can't we have, like, why would you deny me, et cetera, like, why don't you want to be with me? Is this our future? And they never talk about actually why he's doing it. She never asked him until, like, what, the second to last episode? So I feel it still falls on bad writing, because, yeah, it is resolved too quickly. Like, they act like it's nothing. Like, as upset as he is about when it happens, and, like, as upset as she is that he lied to her, we don't see them actually work through those emotions and those feelings of betrayal. We get a lot of, and I do mean feelings of betrayal on both sides, right? Like, we get a lot of her crying, but we don't actually ever hear anything from him except how he's just so upset that they're going to have to live separately, because that's why he gets into the fight with the brother at the gentleman's club. So, yeah, I do think it's resolved quickly, but I don't think the number of episodes in the series overall is the reason why. I felt that it was just bad writing. Like, they didn't think it was worth the time for the couple to sit there and talk it out. Because I remember when we were watching it in a group and everybody was typing, like, so why doesn't she just ask him why he doesn't want kids? Why doesn't she just ask him why he keeps, like, pulling out? And she doesn't do it. And I think we were doing that for, like, 2 episodes. Just like, why didn't she ask? Why didn't she ask? And she doesn't until the very end. And then she does her big speech in the rain, and boop, they're happy and have a baby.
Yeah, and even if the writers are trying to justify this because they don't want it to have a communicative couple, whatever. But even, what about the audience? And, like, what, can you at least explain some things for the audience?
Yes.
That her character doesn't need to know? Because I kept wondering, I know we were asking each other a lot, like, why does he not want children? Is it because he's stuck on his promise to his dad?
Right.
And then somebody else brought up that, well, no, he's also traumatized because he had a terrible childhood and he doesn't want to become like his father. I'm like, that's great. You are thinking about all of this, but I wonder if the writers are.
I honestly...
do they actually know their own reasons?
I think that's a great reason. I think that's a really good point, because all we see in the show, the closest to, like, a quote-unquote explanation for his reasoning, is she asks him and he says, it's a promise I made. But then she goes through his father's study and finds the letters that he had sent as a child. And then she reads them and then talks to Lady Davenport about them and gets an explanation and learns how bad his childhood was. And then she becomes understanding. And I'm like, okay, right. But, like, they still haven't discussed it. We still don't know if, like, that actually is influencing this. Like, it's done very poorly. Like, I don't have a better way to say that. Yeah.
Because when she magically cures him, it's because she says, you are amazing and worthy of love. So her conclusion is past trauma and not feeling worthy. Which apparently only one talk is enough. Why am I paying my therapist? I don't know.
Who knows? Waste of money. You need somebody in the middle of a downpour after you've had a dance to tell you you're worthy of love. That's the key you're missing. Oh, wait, with your oil painting in the background. Bam. Therapy solved.
And also I'm wearing sweatpants. Like, I'm going nowhere with this.
This is also your issue. This is also the problem. This is...
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, okay, wait. Because also, like, her whole, like, you deserve to be loved. I was like, yeah, cool. But you told him that already when y'all got married, that you were happy with y'all just being loved. And he still didn't want children. So why now, all of a sudden, magically, a few months later, you literally tell him the same thing. You love him. And now this time, though, he magically wants children. And not even like hey, let's talk about it and work towards him. Literally, it is 9 months later and she's like giving birth. And you're just like, wait, what? Like, what? No.
And that is not how I understood his psychology at all. I mean, I'm sure the trauma of not feeling loved had a part in it. But to me, the character was not facing that at all and kept thinking, at least like on the conscious level, he kept thinking that it was because of his promise for his father. Because I remember yelling at my screen so many times, who cares? He's dead.
Yes.
He won't know if you lie.
Yes. No, completely agree. And then you're like, okay, wait. So now he doesn't care about the promise and he wants children. And then I think like there's that scene where he's playing with his younger in-laws. And I was like, are they trying to use this scene when they go to visit the family? And he's playing with the younger Bridgerton children. And he like makes the horse and he like acts like the horse can neigh. And then afterwards she's like,
oh yeah.
And she's like, oh, you were so good with the kids. And I was like, is this supposed to be their way of saying that he does want children? But why don't you just have the character say it with his wife, who they're talking about living separately from because of this very issue? Like, this is not a case of show, don't tell. This is a case of they need a fucking talk. And because you're like aggravating your audience.
I had a much better plot in my head where I'll just please hire me. Like where we could find a solution to two different plot lines with Marina being pregnant and they could just adopt her baby.
Thank you. And this actually...
So she had her kid.
Yes.
And he didn't have to procreate.
Right.
And I was like, everyone's happy.
Right. And it works out. It works out completely. Which actually brings me to the other issue we should talk about, which is the colorblind casting. So, I'm sure we'll have some positive things to say about this eventually. So, showrunner Chris Van Dusen, because this is a Shondaland production, it has to be diverse. That is like a key element of all Shondaland shows. But apparently, Chris Van Dusen was annoyed that people called it colorblind casting because, according to him, it was not colorblind casting. Rather, it was historically aware. Now, let me say right now, I get really fucking annoyed when people come in with historical romances and they want to talk about historical accuracy about one issue or maybe a few issues that they've chosen, and everything else is historically inaccurate. Because I don't really care about what you're defining as historical accuracy when you have Ariana Grande coming through on a string quartet in the background. Let me be like real with you. Or when everybody has their teeth. Like, no, I don't want to hear it. Like this idea of like, oh, we have to explain why there are people of color in the nobility is fucking ridiculous. And that's all I want to say on that, because I'm going to stop ranting. So his idea was that if the queen, who it actually has been, currently historical scholars are fighting over this due to the fact that they're like, is Meghan Markle truly the first Black British royal? Or was it this queen, Queen Charlotte? Because she was descendant from, she was of Portuguese descent from Africa. So they were fighting over this, and he found out about this and was like, oh, this is perfect. This will explain all the Black people in my world, rather than just being like, hey, why don't we just put in people who are like really good for this fucking fantasy? And like there are two shows I can think of three I can think of right off the top of my head who have done this well. There's Cinderella with Brandy. Love it. What is that? 1997, 1995. I can't remember. Anyway, it's amazing. Buy it. The DVD's on Netflix. DVDs on Amazon. And then there's also the more recent David Copperfield that just came out with Dev Patel in the lead. And they don't talk about race. People are just there. Because if you're making something that's fantastical and the only quote unquote real element you choose to talk about is race, I think you really need to look at that and why you think that race is not something that could be included in your fantasy that you're creating. So there was no reason for him to have to do this. And on top of it, I think that it really feels very shoehorned in. And we were talking about this because, as we said, the beginning of the series is very fun and lighthearted and fluffy. And you're like, oh, cool, there's just POC. Okay, people are there. We don't care about this. And then you get to, I believe it's a scene in the 4th episode where all of a sudden Lady Danbury is talking about how, was it the queen, the king fell in love with one of us, saying Black people. And because of that, elevated us in society. And then you sort of find out, I don't really know if it's that clear, but basically the queen is the one who gave the Bridgertons, excuse me, not the Bridgertons, the
Bassets.
Yeah, the Bassets, thank you. Who gave the Bassets their dukedom. So like, it's not talked about past that. And I think that's an issue. We have one other time where it's mentioned when Will, the boxer, is talking about his father, or rather the Lord Featherington is propositioning Will to throw a fight. And he talks about how, do you think that your father escaped from Haiti to come here so you could spend your life fighting and getting pummeled basically by people for other people's entertainment? It's mentioned twice. Those are the only times, but no other time. And I think that becomes a real issue in the power dynamics of the show, but also it means that something like Marina giving up her kid, like she would have had a biracial child, right? And it could have been adopted by Daphne and Simon.
Biracial couple.
Right. So like, not only, it feels like they truly choose to talk about race, like when they're trying to be like, oh, hot topic, or oh, we want to make it controversial. But then when like a happy ending with race is there, it's not offered. It's just a no-go. And I don't understand why. Like I've seen a couple articles being like, oh, is there a race problem in Bridgerton? And like, I don't need to read the entire article. Yeah, there is, because like that, like, yeah, there is. Punto final. I was trying to translate that, but my mind is not letting me do that right now. Final point. Right. So like, Ariel, when we were watching it, you were like, all of us in our group chat were like, oh wait, it's not colorblind casting? Oh wait, race is a thing here? Okay. Well, we had 4 episodes where nobody gave a fuck and nobody talked about it. But now we have like this Black Duke who's walking around being only ogled by white women and their moms, and we're gonna just act like that's not an issue now? Like, yeah. And
it enlightened the scene with Marina entering the Featherington's family with the mother, who's extremely spiteful because she's not only prettier than her daughter, and like she's competition,
right?
But she's also the only Black person, and she treats her not so well.
Yes. And so that also adds another layer, like particularly because there's a time like she dismisses her so much, and then there's that scene where the servant is helping Marina with her shoes, and the mom dismisses her and was like, oh, she can do her own shoes, but like somebody in Marina's position would have a servant helping her. Whether or not like I agree with that, that's what her status would grant her. But the mom is like, you're less than that, which now means so much more if she's only doing it to the young Black girl who she's trying to get married. Like, and
you read a lot of exchanges differently once you know this is not color blinding. A lot of little things about, well, she's the only young girl in that house who knows about sex and who had sex.
Yes.
And so she's corrupted.
Yes.
She could like have a bad influence over her daughters, all of that, and it takes another...
No, completely, because there's even
layer.
That comment where they're like, oh, you could catch it. And you're just like,
yeah.
Yes, a whole nother layer when, right, now you know that race exists here. And so, like, I don't really know why they felt it was necessary to add it, not they, excuse me, I will say Chris Van Dusen, although Shonda Rhimes has said that she read every script and approved every script and the overall story, but I will say Chris Van Dusen because he was the showrunner and this was his idea. You cannot see my air quotes or eye roll, but imagine them. But when Shonda Rhimes has done a previous show that was historical, it was a continuation of Romeo and Juliet, and it was called Still Star-Crossed. I believe it did 8 or 10 episodes before it got canceled, and race did not come up in that at all. And so why would you bring it up in this one? And part of me wonders if there's this idea that because Still Star-Crossed was based on a play, there was already this exception that it was a fictional world and therefore colorblind casting made more sense, versus people think of Regency and they think it's a specific time period. But like even the costumes in this show were not historically accurate. So
nothing was.
Right, nothing was.
And also, again, who cares?
Right. Like
it's entertainment.
Exactly.
It's fiction.
Right.
This is not like someone pretending to be a historically white person casted as black. Like,
right.
No.
Right.
They're fictional.
It's exactly. This is not a historical reenactment. So like why does it matter? Why was it necessary?
It was pandering.
I'm
sure.
I feel it was. But I also feel that it's such a problem if people are pandering by being like, look, we're so aware, but in your awareness you're being more racist because you had to make an issue of it, versus like if you're talking David Copperfield or once again Cinderella, because I don't know if everybody's seen David Copperfield. Like, it's not even mentioned. Race literally does not exist in the world. People just happen to have different physical features, and that's it. And that is more of a fantasy and more of an ideal than being like, oh, now black people are raised up. Well, now I gotta wonder, well, what about like Asians in this world? Well, like, oh, is this also the same? So now you're saying that we have colonies? Is that what you're saying? Now Britain is once again their colonizers. So how are you going to deal with that history? Like, you've now added all of this history and this weight to things that it's very obvious that is not going to be dealt with, and which makes it even worse.
No, it just looked like a throwaway answer to the people who love to criticize that type of story, where it doesn't matter because their little brains have trouble accepting that it's okay in fiction.
Right.
It's the 21st century. Like, come on. It just felt like they were like, oh, we're gonna have some criticism from part of the fandom, so let's give them some reason.
Yes.
But it doesn't really matter in our story. Although I would say it also looked like an excuse for Simon's dad's behavior with passing on the title.
Yes.
Other than that, no plot, no reason for the rest of the plot.
But then doesn't that make Simon's response to not wanting to have more children even more problematic? Because now he's one of like when we're watching it, I think we see maybe 2 or 3 other black people of status and title. So the fact that he's like one of this handful who now doesn't want to do something to make the lives of his people easier or better, then that puts Simon in a whole different light that he has to be assessed under. Because it's not just about him then and his choice and his relationship with his father. It's about what his aunt said, that he represents something bigger than that. And like that also was not addressed. And of course it wasn't, because that's a very minority struggle. And we have a white showrunner. And it was very apparent in how race was dealt with. And in all honesty, it was really disappointing, because even though Van Dusen is a white, cis man, Shonda Rhimes is a black woman. So it's like, how did you miss this? Yeah. And
he had writers, and from what we can gather, they were not all white. He had at least one black writer in his writer's room. So how was it missed, or was it brought up and ignored?
Right. That's very true.
It's really too bad because until they gave us this reason,
Air quotes.
yeah, it was quite fun. You didn't have to care. You would just entertain, and then everything went downhill from there.
Yes.
Because a lot of things started to not make sense, not look well written, and also they messed up with the relationship of Daphne and Simon. So it was just, suddenly everything was just disappointing.
I would,
While it started well.
No, I would completely agree. So, having said all of that, do we think that there is a way for them to fix it in the next season? And the second book, if they're following the books, the second book focuses on Viscount Bridgerton, the brother who was in love with the opera singer, in love, cared about, we're not quite sure which one, but with the opera singer and his happily ever after. So assuming they follow that, do you think they can fix these issues in the next season?
The issues between Daphne and Simon, I don't know how they could fix it. I think it looks, from the ending, it looks like they're just going to ignore it and they're just having their happily ever after and bunch of kids.
Right.
And that's it.
She pops out babies.
I am hopeful that we will have fun with the other characters because I enjoyed a lot of them. Like the Bridgerton siblings were fun to watch. The Featherington with Penelope and our Lady Gossip Girl mystery. Although not very consistent in my mind, it's okay. It was all fun.
Yeah.
And Anthony was my favorite mess.
Scoff.
He brought up the drama. He was a drama queen. He was a messy boy, and not completely mean. Sometimes doing crappy things that made no sense. Like at the beginning when he ruins his sister's.
Yeah, all of her corridors, and I was like,
yeah,
what are you doing?
I rewatched it and it still didn't make sense. But it's like, whatever. Sometimes he's okay. He's probably in love with Simon. They don't actually mention it, but it really looked like it.
Agreed.
If they focus on him and they keep him fun this way, as in very dramatic, like, sure, I'll watch it and I can ignore the rest. If they're trying to force some happily ever after that doesn't work, just like they did in season 1, and bring up some really terrible issues like gray areas of consent and stuff like that, no. This ruins the romance. And then yeah.
No, completely agree with that. Like, I think that they could fix the issues with race if they actually address them, because I have a feeling that they're like, his love interest might be cast as somebody who is not white. But that also means then that they now have to handle race well, which is not something that they have done. And then even outside of that, right, like, you can't sell me a happy, healthy relationship, but then they have consent issues between them. That doesn't work. So yeah, hopefully they can fix all of it.
And maybe handle well the LGBTQ relationships, because we have what appears to be 2 queer siblings. Heloise is hinting at the fact that, she's not interested in getting married to a man.
True.
And her brother seems to be attracted to a clearly gay man.
Yes, the artist. Yeah.
But he seems to be rejecting because he's also like having sex with women as sort of a reaction, like, no, I'm not gay.
I'm not gay, have an orgy with women.
But also he's like, this guy is married, so beards exist. Okay.
Yeah. I would love to see that story. I would love to see both of those stories be more explicitly shown to be queer characters. but I sort of once again, I have low standards. I have low standards. I'm going to be honest. After that first season, like if you can't handle something, if you think that you need to add in like race to make it realistic, but you're going to like put in Ariana Grande, I have very little hope. Or you think that like the assaulter should be the one who the audience like empathizes with? I have really low standards of them doing better for the next season. I hope.
Yeah. I guess my hope is I'm such at a low level of hope that I'm hoping it won't be self-hating queer people.
No. Oh.
Not even happy ending. Like just like please don't let them hate themselves and
yes,
be depressed and self-harming or whatever, or
God.
have any type of hate against them. Like
that's so true.
The bar is low.
The bar is very low. Yeah, the bar is very low. I mean, like, and I would love it if like they had Eloise and she was ROAs. That'd be great. But once again, now we're getting to really complicated things, and yeah, the bar is just like no self-hating queer people is where we're at right now. So that's what we're gonna hope for. And I guess that's like
if you can have like a 16-year-old having a secret identity and doing things like if you are way into fiction and not trying to be historically accurate in some areas, then embrace it. Like we don't need the racism and the
homophobia.
Queer hate.
Yeah, no.
Let us have fun. That's really all I want to ask this show.
No.
Let us enjoy stuff, please.
Right? 2020's been shit. Give us something fun. Yeah. Definitely. All right. Well, on that note, we have finished our discussion. I want to thank my guest Ariel for being here today and discussing Bridgerton so in depth with me. If you would like to continue the discussion.
For having me.
Oh, sorry. Say again.
No, thank you for having me.
Oh, thanks for coming. If you want to continue talking, you can find me on Twitter at Tanagra, GGNOC. That's TANAGRA, GGNOC. Ariel, do you want to give your contact information, or they can just find you through me?
Through you. Thank you.
All right, great. So if you also have a message for Ariel, you can also find her at Tanagra, GGNOC on Twitter. And for all you Android users, you can find us on Anchor and RadioPublic. And for all you iThings users, you can listen in on iTunes and Overcast. We also have our episodes up on YouTube where you can see pretty pictures while you listen to us rant about this show. So leave us a message on some platform or even suggest a movie or show. Leave us your feedback, your thoughts on Bridgerton. Did you love it? Are you a member of Romancelandia? Are you going to read the other books? Thanks for joining. Make choices and don't foul it up.